Let's say if you could speak to a 15-year-old self, how do you think your younger version would react to the fact that you ended up being a teacher in the end?
I think my 15-year-old self would absolutely be just laughing to death, laughing the back off.
So, Liam, you've lived and worked in Ukraine, in 4 different cities in Ukraine.
That's right.
In Donetsk, Kiev, Odessa, and Lviv. Am I missing something?
No. Those are all the ones that I've worked in. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, sure. Okay, 4. It's been 4 cities. You seem to know Ukraine better than me, actually. So could you please tell me what it was like living in each of the cities?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, obviously Donetsk was the first, and so for me, I was 24 at the time. It was my first time living abroad, so it was a fantastically interesting experience. Everything was new. The language, the people, the culture, and one of the reasons why I left England was that I wanted, new experiences, and it's one of the reasons why I decided not to go to, Thailand or Spain or somewhere where I thought I might meet lots of British people. I wanted to mix with, people from different countries and different cultures. And I was really fortunate that in Donetsk, I had a great group of friends some Ukrainian, one of the guy was English, but then the rest were from different countries around Europe. And kind of, we explored the city together, and it was fantastic. It was really, really cool. And the city itself was very similar in many ways to my kind of home area in Britain, a little bit industrial, kind of mining background, kind of working class city. So for me, it felt quite comfortable, it was quite similar.
Right.
Then I moved to Kiev, and I've lived in Kiev twice with Odessa kind of sandwiched in the middle. And I have a kind of love-hate relationship with Kiev, in that I often tell people that I don't actually like Kiev. It's too big. It's too big, basically. I'm from a small town in the northeast of England, and
what is it called?
It's called Bishop Auckland. It's in County Durham. Kiev's huge. It's easy to get around because of the metro system, and the transport's really good. But it can take 30, 40 minutes, an hour to get anywhere, and for me that was kind of a little bit too much. But I've actually lived in Kiev for 4 years, so I guess I must like something about it. It's a bit. I always say it's a little bit like London in the sense that
Really?
there's always something to do, even if it's a
right.
You can find there's a concert, or there's some gig, or there's like a place to go out. And I also find that the people in Kiev are quite open-minded, in the sense that you get a lot of people who have moved there from smaller cities in Ukraine for university, and because they've taken the decision to leave their kind of their home, fly the nest, as we say. I find that the people are quite independent, they're quite open-minded, and kind of they like having fun, and they're open to meeting new people and doing new things. Odessa was also fantastic. I loved being close to the sea. It was my favorite thing about being in Odessa. And I know lots of people say that Odessa is only nice in the summer, but you get a different vibe in the winter. Obviously it's cold, but you can sit inside in pubs with your friends. Kind of go to people's apartments and go to people's houses. And I found that in terms of the friends that I made and the students and things like that, I made some of my best friends in Odessa, especially if I think about like the relationship I had with classes. Some of the students I had in Odessa, I'm still really good friends with now, and we had like great parties together, and kind of
and Zoom parties, I presume.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, right now, and it was just, I found that people in Odessa were quite relaxed. They didn't worry too much about what was going on in the rest of the world. It was kind of like, Odessa, we're here in Odessa, things are good, let's kind of have fun. And I really liked that. It really appealed to me. And obviously now I'm in Lviv. Everyone knows it's beautiful, a kind of historical city. And the good thing about Lviv is that I find it really comfortable to live here, because it's so compact. I can walk everywhere. I can walk everywhere. Don't have to take the metro like in Kiev. And
do you cycle?
I don't. I like cycling, but I find them. I don't really need to here because I walk quite quickly, so it gets me everywhere. As you know, I'm tall. Gets me everywhere as quickly as I need to. As I need to get there. But I find I'm turning. I'm turning maybe a little bit into a person from Lviv because when there's tourists around, I get annoyed. I say, oh, so many tourists, and people are like,
You are one of them, man.
I live here, I live here, exactly. So it's yeah, four very different cities, but all kind of nice in their own way. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So, well, you seem to be constantly on the move. Is it a pursuit of happiness or spirit of adventure that gives you this travel bug?
I would say, to be honest, it's a little bit of both. I always wanted to travel. That's why I became a teacher. And my initial idea was to live in Ukraine for a year, maybe two, and then to go somewhere else. But I made a lot of friends here. I like the school and the company that I work for here. So for me, being able to travel within the country, and I'm fortunate that our company has branches in different schools, which makes it easy to do. It ticks both boxes for me. So I get to travel and experience something slightly different, but at the same time, I still get to maintain my friendships and my relationships and kind of keep working for the same company. So I guess I'm quite fortunate in that regard. I get to have my cake and eat it too. I get travel, I get kind of the adventure, but I don't have to risk, like losing everything or ending up in a bad place or a bad job.
Yeah, right. So the school has to open its branch somewhere else so that you might travel on and on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Have you finally settled down?
I mean, I'm definitely going to be here for the next year as well, and then we'll kind of think about we'll see what happens after that. It's difficult for me to say because usually the first year that I'm somewhere, I really I love being there. Then the second year, it's kind of like, okay, maybe I think about moving somewhere else. But unfortunately, I'm not getting any younger, So I guess at some point I'll have to settle down. But I still enjoy traveling around Ukraine. I do a lot of traveling to different cities. I really love Kharkiv. Right now I'm trying to explore Western Ukraine a little bit more. So I went to Ivano-Frankivsk before Christmas, and I was planning to go to Ternopil, but obviously I can't at the moment because of the situation. Yeah. It's on the list, it's on the list of
we're in this together, yeah.
Open again, yeah.
How long have you been teaching, by the way?
I've been teaching since 2013. So what, 7 years, seven and a half years? Yeah. So it's flown over. It doesn't feel like that. I guess, like as we said before, because I've moved around so much, it doesn't really feel like I've been, doing it for 7 years. It feels like, going to a new school in a new city, meeting new people, you kind of reset. And
right.
One of the things I like about being a teacher is that every day is slightly different, because even if you've taught a certain lesson before, teaching it with a different class, with a different mix of characters in a different time, it produces different results. So for me, it doesn't feel like I've been doing the same job for 7 years, which is nice. Because as I said, I get bored easily, so I need kind of it's constant challenge and things constantly kind of changing.
Speaking of challenges, what was the biggest challenge for you at the beginning of your career?
Well, I mean, there are the obvious ones that I think a lot of native speakers have, which a lot of people don't realize, in the sense that we don't actively study English grammar at school, as you do in Ukraine with Ukrainian or with Russian. I mean, I did English language as an A-level when I was at college, and I did English literature at university, so my background is in English. But when I first started teaching, I wasn't massively confident on the rules of the grammar. I knew it, I knew why it was correct, but being able to explain why it was correct was more difficult. But I would say, I think a lot of people would say that for me personally, the biggest challenge was learning to say no to people, in the sense that I would find students asking me, Liam, is it possible for me to say this? And it would be something that didn't sound very natural. For example, at the weekend, I went to the house of my grandparents. And, a native speaker wouldn't say that. He said, I went to my grandparents' house. But I didn't want to offend anyone in the beginning. I wanted to kind of be supportive. So it's like, it's fine, that's okay. Yeah, that's grammatically correct. It makes sense. But really, that wouldn't sound natural. And now, with a bit more experience, if one of my students asked me a question like that, I would say, well, grammatically it's correct, but it's not very natural. It's better to say this. And it took me a little bit of time to learn to say that to people, to learn to tell people, look, what you're saying is correct, but not very natural. And I think that's one of the reasons why some people want to have a native speaker as a teacher, is you can explain that kind of thing where it's grammatically correct, but maybe it's not natural. And that was something that didn't come easily to me. I had to learn and maybe get a little bit older and a little bit more grumpy and more willing to offend people. But now it's not a problem. No, I don't care. I don't care.
It's not the first time you've mentioned growing older. That's okay. It's fine. It's human. It's a human nature, Liam. Relax.
Creeping up on me.
By the way, speaking of getting older, did you ever picture yourself as a teacher in adolescence? Let's say if you could speak to a 15-year-old self, how do you think your younger version would react to the fact that you ended up being a teacher in the end?
I think my 15-year-old self would absolutely be just laughing to death, laughing the back off. I could never have imagined becoming a teacher. I think all of my teachers would say that I was a bright student, but I was quite lazy, and I didn't really have a huge amount of respect for the rules. I never thought I would be a teacher. I never thought that would be me. And in fact, even now, I don't think of myself necessarily so much as a teacher. I know there's lots of people in kind of our line of work or in teaching in general who almost define themselves by being a teacher. Like they like sharing memes on Facebook about being a teacher, on Facebook communities about being a teacher, and are sharing all this stuff about teaching. It's quite a big part of their lives, and it's quite a big part of their identity. Whereas for me, that's definitely not the case. Like, I like the fact that I have friends who don't work in the same line of work as me, and I never talk about work. I talk about teaching. I don't like talking about teaching at home. When I go out with my friends, if it's other teachers, I get annoyed with people kind of talking shop and you're talking about teaching all the time. And like, for me, it's my job and I enjoy it, but it's a small part of my life, and I don't kind of define myself by it. And I think my 15-year-old self would probably be happy about that. They wouldn't feel so betrayed that, that the rebel that I like to think I was when I was 15 grew up to become a teacher. So
it's okay to be a rebel and a teacher. I mean, one does not exclude the other. And wait, don't you feel it as a vocation? Because it seems like there is something to be ashamed of. Okay, I'm a teacher, but I don't want to speak about it.
No. I mean, I get what you mean about it kind of being a vocation. I think that some people naturally are teachers. Some people naturally are good at it. Like you have kind of the skills to do it. And that's absolutely fine. That's great. I just personally feel that I guess it's to do with my work-life balance. I think the more I kind of bring being a teacher into my personal life, the more that I bring work into my personal life. And I like to kind of keep a bit more of a balance. And also, as you said about being a rebel and being a teacher, they're not mutually exclusive. I like to think that I understand, what it's like to be a bit of a, 15 or 16-year-old who maybe doesn't necessarily want to be in the lessons or kind of want to take part, because I was the same way. So I like to bring that attitude to the way that I teach. And I think it's one of the reasons why I get on best with teenagers. And I have teenagers my favorite age to teach, because I can empathize quite a lot with them. And I remember what I was like at that age. And for that reason, I think we developed quite a good bond and things work quite well.
You see? Okay, it doesn't matter what the passport says. Liam, my final question is, what advice would you give to those who've only started their teaching career?
It's a really good question. What I would probably say is there are the obvious things, about kind of being careful about choosing your first school. I remember advice I got when I did my CELTA from my CELTA tutor, who was great. Both of them, they said, don't accept the first job where you have more than 24 teaching hours a week, because it'll be too much for you. And don't accept the first job where you have lots of split shifts. So working in the morning, then a huge gap, then working in the evening, because
anti-social hours,
that's not very good. But the main piece of advice that I would give is think about why you're becoming a teacher. Is it because of a career decision, because you think it's a good career? In which case, find a school that offers professional development and that looks after its teachers. Don't join a school with hundreds of teachers and hundreds of branches who kind of a bit more faceless. Join a school that's going to invest in you a bit more and give you opportunities. Or alternatively, if you're doing it as a means to travel, then think about where you want to go. Don't just open TEFL.com and think, oh, I'm going to go to Italy, or I'm going to go to Spain. Think carefully, do you want to go to a country where you might not necessarily get a great salary, but you'll have fantastic weather or nice surroundings? Or do you want to go to a country where you will be a novelty because you're a foreigner, where there's going to be less people there and it's going to be more kind of exciting or interesting? So I know a lot of people who first start doing it, they open a website or a recruiting website, and there's so many offers from different places, and it's easy to choose one which seems this is going to be fantastic, the weather's going to be great, or the food's going to be great, or there's going to be lots of other English people or American people. But I would always say, think about it for a little bit more. And is that really why you want to do the job? Do you want to do the job because you want nice weather, or you want nice food, or you want to meet people of the same place? If it is, great, go for it. But if not, maybe think about looking at something that's going to be a bit more sustainable long term, or that's going to offer you more options later as kind of a professional.
Yeah, look for something that matters indeed. Who were your CELTA teachers? Do you remember their names?
I do indeed. My CELTA teachers there was Robert and Rachel. I did it at International House in Newcastle, where I'm not advertising for them, but they do a fantastic CELTA. If anyone's
in Newcastle, where Chris comes from, right?
That's right. Yeah, Chris did hers a year before mine. So it's kind of, it's like a fine wine. Every year the vintage improves. Yeah, I'm joking. No, it's. I think Chris would agree with me that they do a great CELTA there, and they gave us really good advice, and they sat down with all of us at the end of the course, and they talked to us about what we wanted to do and our motivations for getting into TEFL, and they gave us recommendations. And actually, mine both said to me, go to Poland or kind of a country around Poland, because the things
like Ukraine.
Well, exactly, yeah. In terms of social life, in terms of a new language, in terms of a new challenge, that will be the best place to go for you. And obviously, it was good advice, because 7.5 years later, I'm still here. So I really
thank you, Robert and Rachel. Yeah,
fantastic advice. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's been really interesting. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Thanks, Nasty. Great questions. Nice to see you again. Yeah.